So I mentioned earlier that I was going to watch all of the James Bond movies because I found so many of them on VHS. This batch here, which I call the transition phase of James Bond movies, because of course Sean Connery played James Bond in the first 5 007 features. But then the studio was like, okay, well, we're going to make another Bond movie, right? We're going to make another Bond movie. And Sean Connery was like, nah, I'm good. You know, so they were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So obviously they're going to get another guy, right? So they did. They hired George Lazenby to play James Bond in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I guess for a long time I'd thought, okay, only Sean Connery could play James Bond. But that's not true. I mean, this is a James Bond movie. So far my least favorite of the James Bond movies that I've seen in my marathon. Of course, I've seen Bond movies in the past, and, you know, I'm not going to act like I've never seen any of these movies before. This is the first one that I watched and paid attention to that I really didn't like. It's not a terrible movie. It's, you know, they did their best. They made a good James Bond movie, I guess. And it's not that the actor doesn't do a good job, because he does. He's fine. I would have been totally fine with this guy going forward, but for whatever reason, he decided he didn't want to do it anymore after that either. But the movie is, like, so stupid, and I don't know, there's some cool stuff happens in it. You know, the classic, like, skiing down the mountain and dudes with, like, machine guns shooting on the skis and everything. That's in there. It's okay, you know. And you got your Blofeld in there, you know, the ultimate Dr. Evil villain, head of Spectre. He's in it, played by Telly Savalas, television actor. You might know him as Kojak from back in the 70s. Ask your grandma. She probably watched that. The plot is really stupid. I think it's about, like, brainwashing these female assassins and, I think, chemical warfare. Hang on, I got some notes. Anyway, it's like 2.5 hours long, and it's, like, boring as shit, really. There are a couple of cool, like I said, there's a couple of cool things, like the ski chase, like driving on ice scene in the middle of a festival or some kind of, like, demolition derby or some shit, and then they drive through a festival. And this movie, the action is definitely there. There is a lot of action in this movie. I mean, not maybe as much as, say, the last one, You Only Live Twice, but I got a real problem with the editing in this movie. It's terrible. It's so confusing. Like, there's, you have... I'm not a filmmaker. I don't know how to edit movies, but I can tell you I wouldn't do it like that, because it jumps all over the place. I mean, like, the camera angles and stuff, and it's like they flick back and forth from the protagonist and the antagonist, and this car chasing them, and the helicopter, and meanwhile you're seeing a helicopter, like, close up of the blades and shit, and I guess maybe it's like, because this is like 1969, this movie. I guess it's supposed to be, like, kind of, like, psychedelic and, like, crazy and all over the place. And, hey, let's get those hippie kids watching some James Bond, and they'll probably enjoy tripping out and, like, you know. No, it just comes off as confusing and dumb. And the stunts and the special effects aren't really that great. As I said, the acting is okay, but the story's cheesy. In this one, Moneypenny, Q, and M are all back in it, with the actors from the Connery era, and Yeah, it's all right. It's just so, like I said, so far it was the most boring and disappointing of the Bond films that I've seen so far. And then remember how Sean Connery was like, "Nah, I don't think I want to play James Bond anymore. I don't know. I don't want to be typecast." And it was fun and everything. And then On Her Majesty's Secret Service came out, and I guess, I don't know, George Lazenby didn't want to do it. The next movie after that, and so they were like, "Well, we got to get a Bond, right? So let's go back to Connery. Let's see if we can get him back, because this movie, the last movie, didn't do as well as we were hoping. But if we get Sean Connery back, we'll have a blockbuster movie on our hands." And surprisingly, they did. They threw a huge pile of money at him. I believe by today's standards, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it was like $1.5 million in 1970, 71. And he accepted. He came back, and he did another movie. And yeah, I believe he actually gave the money to charity. I don't remember which charity, but look it up on Wikipedia. I'm pretty sure it's on there, and I'll let you know. But yeah, that aside, I mean, he came back because diamonds are forever. And this is a really good movie. It's the wackiest of the James Bond movies so far. I mean, You Only Live Twice, in my mind, is still better and a little crazier. But this one has a lot of crazy stuff in it. I really like, there's a couple of villains in it that I really like. Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. And they're like assassins or whatever. They're just cold-blooded killers. But they're like almost like comedy sidekicks, comedy relief in a way. But just because they're so creepy and so evil, but they look like just regular weird dudes or whatever. Regular weird doesn't sound right, but watch a movie and you'll see what I mean. Interestingly enough, one of the Mr. Wint, the actor who plays Mr. Wint, I believe, is the father of Crispin Glover, George McFly from Back to the Future. This is his dad. Bruce Glover is in this movie. And he didn't make that many movies, but he's in it and he's cool, and it's just like it's like watching a 70s version of Crispin Glover on screen, and him and his accomplice Mr. Kidd, they meet their fate in the end and get killed off by James Bond. But anyway, I guess this is all Spectre stuff again, because you got your Blofeld again, different actor this time, and he has hair. Who'd have thought, right? Well, there's some stuff in here that has to do with cloning or whatever at the very beginning. So he makes duplicates of himself, Blofeld that is, and James Bond fights one of them, I guess, and he thinks that he's killed Blofeld, but he finds out it's a clone or something like that. But they all have hair, so I guess somewhere along in the cloning process, he just sequenced the DNA and took out the hair loss gene or whatever. He's got it's pretty fancy looking. It's all silver and stuff, but he's wearing the same jacket. It takes place in Las Vegas. Guess this is 1970, 71 Las Vegas. Still at the time, reputation for being a crazy party city or whatever, and I don't really know what Vegas is like. I haven't been there. But yeah, that's entertaining, I guess. The whole gambling thing. James Bond always seems to end up in a casino. I mean, I think his very first scene in Dr. No, he's playing that weird card game where they serve you the card on a paddle, like a wooden paddle, and they flip the cards with the paddle and stuff. I don't know what the hell game that is. I'm gonna look it up though. Just hang on. Yeah, so I looked it up. It's called Baccarat. I had no idea. And I didn't look into the rules or anything, and I don't know why they use the paddles, and I don't care. It's just, that's, hey, what was the game that James Bond was playing? It was Baccarat. Yippee. Well, in this one, he doesn't play that. He just goes to the casino and shooting craps. This was the first Bond movie, I think, to take place in America, or predominantly in America, or whatever. And I like it. It's a fun movie. This one, it's Blofeld and Spectre, I guess, or mostly just Blofeld, he's collecting diamonds. They're mounting on this space satellite laser beam. Yeah, there's some good stuff in this movie. Jill St. John, the first American Bond girl, is in this movie. And she plays sort of like a anti-hero. She starts out as a bad girl or the enemy agent or whatever, and then she switches sides and, hooks up with James Bond, of course, and, he can convert any woman from being evil to being his love slave, apparently. Yeah, also, there's a female character with a really funny name in this one. Her name is Plenty O'Toole. Why? First of all, it's a lady. And, I don't know, the joke fails, but we're left with this dumbass name for this character. And she dies. First she gets thrown out a window into a pool, like 5 stories up. Yeah, so she lives, but then she ends up dying, or the next time we see her body floating in another pool, under like plastic or something, or like I think she's like tied to the bottom or weighed down, intentionally drowned, murdered. Professional hit, I suppose. There's some spy stuff in here. Dinosaur Forever is a fun movie. There's a really good scene where James Bond drives a moon buggy. No, you didn't hear me wrong on that. It's a frickin' moon buggy. But he's not on the moon. Anyway, breaks into like the villain's secret base or operation headquarters or whatever. For some reason, there's like this moon setup, moonscape, and there's astronauts in suits, and there's a moon buggy. So James Bond is being chased by some security guard or something like that, or some guy shooting at him, and so he's hiding in the moonscape somewhere, and then the astronauts even are like, maybe they're making a movie or something, I don't know, or they're faking the moon landing or some wacko stuff, and maybe that's where this whole theory about faking the moon landing comes from, is from Diamonds Are Forever, because that was like, 2 years after the moon landing, and anyway, it's dumb, and even the astronauts are like, well, whoever's making this like movie or whatever says, hey, get that guy. So these astronauts come running at him, but they're running in like slow motion as if they were like in moon gravity or something. Like, it's so dumb. Like, the suit doesn't make you move that slow, or it's just really dumb. And then James Bond, he's in this moon buggy, and it's got little claw arms on the side of it, and it's like, oh, it's so dumb, but it's funny. And then he like jumps out of the thing, and I guess he like sticks a brick on the gas pedal or something, because it drives exactly like a car, which is really funny. Immediately grabs like an ATV that some like a big dirt bike or whatever that some guy dropped. Well, that he blew him up, and then took his ride, and then he just and then he's over the hills and stuff, and because it's taking place out in the Nevada desert, right? And then he meets up with Jill St. John, the what's her name again? Tiffany Case is her character, and she's like waiting there in the car, and he just leaps off of the ATV and just like, okay, let's go, and then they just, it's just like when it comes to like action, this movie, even though it's ridiculous, and there's a really good car chase scene later that also proves the point. Even though the action is ridiculous, it's way easier to watch and more fun to watch than this crazy, choppy edited, confusing mess from the last movie from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I don't know who that editor was, but dude, who edits the editor? Diamonds Are Forever. Yeah, like I said, Connery came back. He came back, and then he quit again. Movie did pretty well. Got a little bit of criticism at the box office, from movie critics and whatever at the time. But he said, yep, okay, I'm good. Thanks, guys. I'm out. Sean Connery doesn't talk like that. But I'm not going to even attempt a Sean Connery accent. So I guess they were like, shit, we need another James Bond, man. Here is the third of the three movies I'm going to show you today. This is Live and Let Die, the first Roger Moore James Bond. And I gotta say, I like it. It's a pretty good movie. It's I realize you guys don't want to hear me just talk about stuff and go, "Yep, it's good." But it is. I'm not gonna say it's like fantastic and it changed my world and I highly recommend it or anything. But this is a good movie. If you like James Bond movies, this would make 8 that I've watched so far. Out of those 8. I'd put it right in the middle somewhere, maybe 5. He does all the James Bond things. He's very polite and proper, and he's, good with the ladies, let's say. I'm going to say it right now that the James Bond sexism thing, it got worse in, maybe not particularly this movie, and we'll see with future movies going forward, because of course I'm going to talk about those too. But I think it got kind of out of hand in the 70s and early 80s, and with the Roger Moore movies, from what I remember seeing them back in the day. My take on that, though, is Sean Connery is a handsome dude. I mean, all these guys are, right? But his movies are set in a time in the 60s when it was kind of, I don't know, a lot of those barriers hadn't been broken down. They tried to... every Bond movie, even until the 90s, objectifies women. But in the 60s, it seemed kind of more like, this is an old-ass movie. I guess it's just how things were, right? But then as you get into the 70s and the 80s, especially the 80s, it just seems weird and out of place that, everywhere he goes, women are throwing themselves at James Bond. He's got a magic penis, I guess. Or whatever. And because he's always, sleeping with enemy agents and then converting them, or, they conveniently get killed by a ninja or poisoned by somebody or something like that. I don't know. It just gets kind of... It seems very out of place in the 80s movies. And it seems like it's just another gimmick that gets cranked out. Because by the time Roger Moore was done his later Bond movies, the dude was 60 years old or something like that. Or 50s, right? And it's not okay, well, he's too old or anything to get women or whatever. But... I don't know. It just seems so dumb, so ridiculous. It's it's a magic power that he has. We're back in the 60s ones. It was oh yeah, well he's just a smooth agent and whatever. And I guess they're establishing the trope, right? But yeah, I don't know. It worked better for Sean Connery for some reason. I guess like in the time periods that his movies are set in. Live and Let Die. It's got some like voodoo in it. It's got some tarot card reading stuff in it, like pseudo magic, I guess. Yeah, James Bond hang glides in this one. I'm sure you can see that, but yeah, big deal. It's not a very exciting scene. Come to think of it, there's not a lot of really exciting standout scenes. There's a lot of gunplay. Gunplay. Bang, bang, you're dead. A villain with a claw hand or whatever. Oh, James Bond escapes some gators. That's cool. Yeah, you know, there's a really good boat chase in this movie, and they just like wreck like so many boats and stuff, and so many people die in it. Like, well, maybe not so many, but a bunch of people crash their boats anyway, and it's like, you know, skipping through the swamps and the bayous and the I don't know, it's pretty cool. Fighting gators, racing boats, voodoo, new James Bond. One more thing about Live and Let Die. The theme song. Don't get me wrong. I like the song. I don't particularly care for the Beatles. I know it isn't the Beatles. It's Paul and Linda McCartney, Wings, that recorded Live and Let Die. And I don't mind that song. I like it. It's a good song. But they play the shit out of it in this movie. And then they play like an orchestral version of it, like during this action scenes and stuff. And then they do a recap of it or something, like, but they play the song in its entirety during the opening credits. It's like a 3.5, 4 minute song or something like that. Maybe 3 minutes. And then they play it again at the very end. And I know that they play like clips of it. There's even somebody singing the song in a bar in the middle of it, in the middle of the movie. And it's like, oh, just like... And the song was a huge hit. And it made a lot of money for Paul McCartney, I guess, and a bunch of other people. Yeah, and you go, whatever. But it was just like, oh, I'm so sick of that fucking song. Like, play something else, man. Anyway, yeah, Live and Let Die. It was pretty good. It was a good introduction to Roger Moore. Yeah, these ones, I mean, like, there's a different actor in every one of these movies. And so I think it's a unique little snapshot of James Bond franchise from 1969, 1971, and 1973. So from the years 69 to 73, we got 3 different James Bond movies and 3 different James Bond actors. And so yeah, it was kind of the transition period, right? And you know, if you were a Bond fan back in the 60s and you saw Connery and all that in that role, and you saw Diamonds Are Forever and you liked it, like, I'm sure you would have lost your mind to hear that Sean Connery is not going to do the next one after that. And they come up with a different Bond and you're like, oh my god, they're going to do this again. Like, but again, I'm going to review these future movies. Well, the distant future of 1975 in future videos. Anyway, in the future I'll be covering more of the James Bond movies. I think I'm going to take a little break from that, though. I'm a little bonded out right now. I'm a little 00XX. Yeah. Once again, this has been Andy Boy. If you like this video, throw a like on it. If you want to see some more stuff that I've done, feel free to subscribe to my channel and to take a little browse through my playlists. Might be something on there you like. Sometimes it's about movies, sometimes it's about toys, sometimes it's about comics. Actually, I really need to do a comic video. I haven't done one of those in a long time. Sometimes it's about role-playing games, specifically D&D. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it just happens, man. So this is the Andy Boy Comics and Toys. This is my show. Have a good one, everybody. Love ya.